I'm self-taught product guy. I've been ideating different ideas, bringing it up from idea to product stage and testing it out. So this is somewhere like third product that I'm working on, and this one I think personally is the a product that I can build that has the biggest impact that I can think of. Right. That is what is eco, what it stands for. I'm passionate about climate change and solving for climate change. There are many people who debate about it, who talk about it, who naysayers about climate change. But I want to be on the side of people who are solving for things, right? So that is what is eco. Talking about eco itself is eco is a social platform basically where people can come together, form their communities for sustainability and discussing, planning, and actually doing sustainable things.
Right, right. So, to understand a little bit on your journey of actually, coming into this aspect of your life itself, which is, how did you really get interested in the whole aspect of sustainability and just working towards climate change?
Okay, to be frank, it started out with climate change. Sustainability was not something that I was, personally, it was not cool enough for me. I was like, it's not for me. But then climate change, I'm a big science nerd, right? So I keep up with a lot of science news and research. So I've read about climate science and the effects, all the news about it over the years. So I was like,
Right.
okay, this is a big deal. Um, and what are the solutions? And when you look at the different kind of solutions, living sustainably, everyone living sustainably in their own space makes things better for everyone, even including climate. So I think that's how I got into this mindset of okay, sustain through sustainability, you can actually solve climate change.
Right. So again, just to clarify a little bit, because I know a lot of people might point something like this out, which is basically, of course, climate changes throughout, even whether it's human intervention or not. Climate keeps changing. It's just that we are talking about accelerated climate change due to human intervention and due to human activity. So that is again something that I wanted to clarify before anyone points that out. So. Now, coming to the current situation with regards to climate change, and slowly we'll dive into sustainability as well, and how sustainability plays a role in this. Where has, based on whatever research that you have done, where is climate change currently for us? How fast is the climate changing, and how bad is it going? It might get for us.
Okay, so about climate change, you are right that climate has been naturally changing over millennia, for that matter. And as a matter of fact, when dinosaurs were roaming around, the average temperature was 4 degrees higher than today. It was warmer
Oh,
back
okay.
then. Okay, so
Okay.
it is cooler now. Then people might say, then what's the problem? The problem is the climate is problematic for us. We cannot, as human bodies, cannot evolve fast enough. And by the way, not just humans; it's also animals and other living beings here that have to adapt to this. Right? They require time. They do not evolve so fast. Okay, so where are we at climate with regard to climate change? There are two. There's good news and then there's bad news.
Okay.
But then good news is short. That is, more and more people are talking about climate change. That's the good news. Bad news. Here's the train wreck that's coming. That is, we aren't taking enough action that's required. The more we delay it, the more drastic the change that we might have to do, right? And for a lot of people. So, yeah, I think that's where we are at with regard to climate change.
Right, right. So like just to dig up, your ideology behind this whole thing, which is um climate change again, like you said, of course it's a natural process of changing. It's just that the because of the industrialization and the amount of resources that human civilization actually uses, the climate change has accelerated a lot more than it should have, right? But then uh, like just to get an understanding, isn't this part of like a natural process of of the earth itself, right? Like, so what I want to understand is climate change going to destroy earth as a structure, or is it just going to affect the living population that exists, right? Because again, like you said, when dinosaurs existed, the temperature was higher than it is right now, and then natural changes happened, and then we came into existence. Similarly, don't you think this is just a cycle of how it works?
Okay, so I'll take an example. So last time climate changed this drastically, it was an ice age. Excuse me.
That's okay.
So last time this climate changed by this much amount in relatively faster duration was when it was during ice age, right? So it was in the reverse direction though, but humans were around that time as well, but they had freedom to move about and uh, control a lot of things. But this time the acceleration is in just a span of 100 years, right? So I don't think, and plus that time there was no extra carbon being emitted by humans alone, right? This time there's a lot of carbon being emitted, taken out from the earth where it has been captured and kept, and it is being released into the environment. I think that's combination of both of these is what is gonna make this one that is so devastating to humans.
Right. Okay. Okay. Got it. So now, how does sustainability come into picture? What is sustainability for the audience to understand? What do you classify sustainability as?
Okay, I'll go. The textbook definition is where you are doing your regular. Sustainability is where you're meeting your, let's say, doing a business and meeting your social economic needs of the society while also taking care of the environment you live in, right? That includes the all living beings, not just humans. So that is living sustainably, right, with respect
Okay.
to in your own environment. Now, I like to think of it in simple words for the audience would be to live harmoniously in the space you're in and around the space you're in. Yeah.
Right. So now to understand a little bit more on sustainability itself, where does sustainability come into picture when you look like, is there a particular way of life that needs to be followed to really live sustainably? Or is sustainability a very dynamic thing where people basically different things can be done to sort of live sustainably, right? Did you sort of catch what I'm trying to say?
I got it. Got it. So,
Yeah.
when you talk about sustainability, there are uh, two school of thoughts. That is, one would be one school of thought would be to say there are traditional ways of living sustainably that is down in traditions and it's already we know it, right? That is that. But then there's the second school of thought that says technology is going to solve all our problems, sustainability problems. You don't have to always go back to caveman practices. You can technology will come along and new technologies especially will come along and save us all, right? So I think you can. I don't think you can write off either of these. I think you have to capture the goods of both of these, and I definitely think it's a lifestyle, and we should inculcate best of both worlds and go forward. We shouldn't stick on to just hey, this is what I believe in, and that's all I'll be practicing, but rather be open to both and adapt that into one's lifestyle. I think it's a lifestyle at the end of the day.
Right. So now even when we talk about, like, using, like you mentioned, using technology to sort of live sustainably, right? Development of technology is something that the world is working on. Especially businesses are sort of working towards changing the way they do things, upgrading their technology to a way where it's more helpful for the environment, right? Now, why isn't a solution, like, even when we talk about looking for alternatives when it comes to changing the technology that we use, or even for example say like electric vehicles, right? don't they also sort of contribute to the harmfulness to the environment already, which already exists? Or is it just that we are trying to figure out solutions to just make it better and not completely cross it off?
Okay, that's a valid thought, and I've been thinking about that too. Me and my entire team at Eku, in fact, and we don't have an answer. We
Hmm.
think the best is to do what you can in the situation you're in, right? So, okay, but still, I'll put forward a few of my thoughts that I've been thinking lately. Is the businesses are that have been traditionally let's say, uh, not sustainable. It is
Hmm.
imperative that they become sustainable, and there
Hmm.
is no business that will not be sustainable and still be a business in the future. I think that's going to happen just in the span of this one one decade.
Hmm. 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 Hmm.
So yeah, and best is if the entire business is 100% sustainable and it does not cause any harm. But we as humans, consumers especially, of these businesses, are so used to the ease of these businesses. I think the businesses
Hmm.
are just like trying to still do their business,
Right.
but also make it more sustainable. They are caught in
Yeah.
between. So
Right.
yeah, I think it's fair. I think they could do definitely better, but here's where we are.
Well, it's just about finding the right sweet spot for both the things where you're not really harming the environment also a lot, but you're also able to sort of carry forward your regular activities. So now where is the solution for this whole climate change going to come from? Like again, like it feels the way the discussion around climate change and sustainability right now feels like we are about to reach doomsday anytime now. I mean, anytime now, of course, in a few years, but like it's closer than people think it is, right? Where is the solution going to come from, and how likely is it that it can be implemented in a quick manner?
This is a nice question. I would say I want to answer this with an example, or actually, I want to take a step back. So, if you go back a few centuries, um, like in societies, if you had to bring about changes, it was most likely that one person, mostly the king of their land, right, who used to, dictate a certain thing, and that would be sweeping across the society. That would bring about the lifestyle changes required, any lifestyle change for that matter. Over the time, religious heads and these representatives of the land, they lost their power. And if you come to current age, it's the businesses. They almost define our lives, right? So if, for example, if an athlete wears a particular kind of shoes, like fans of that athlete will most definitely use that brand, right? For example, those shoes, right? So businesses have that power to define lifestyles. So I think no, no. I talk a lot about consumers, but this applies to people who do not consume as well, right? But consumers generally wouldn't want to go back to uh, that's what we would call caveman lifestyle, right? So businesses have the power to define, bring about these sustainable changes. It could be both traditional, changes, habits
Hmm.
of sustainable habits that they could introduce for their customers, or new technologies that will solve some aspect of sustainability for their product or service.
Right, that makes a lot of sense. Now, but to dive a little deeper into this aspect itself, when we talk about businesses, right? Like, for example, even Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola, I think, is the most polluting, plastic polluting brand in the world, if I'm not wrong. And even when we take cigarette companies, right? The cigarette butts itself are one of the most polluted or thrown away garbage that is out there, right? But again, governments haven't really done anything about it, or the all the world leaders could come together, and they haven't really done anything about these companies. So if the government itself is not sort of stepping into this aspect, and companies are anyway not taking the necessary steps, where do you think, um, like even as us as individuals, what can we even do to sort of, may take a step when these big companies itself are not ready to do anything about it?
You gave the example of Coca-Cola. So, if for the audience here, the Coca-Cola deliberate before, I mean, most of the 25 plus age group here would recognize that there was a point of time where Coca-Cola would provide their soft drinks in glass bottles, right? That is, um, to a certain extent, sustainable. Why did it move away from glass bottles to plastic bottles, PET bottles? Is because their consumers no more cared for glass bottles. So, a point being, the consumers, consumers have a lot of power. They just don't recognize it. They are not, let's say, exercising their power, right? When it comes to politics, politics is a mess in itself, but all I would like to comment about that is you can pinch where it hurts. Put your money where it matters, right? You have that, at least that power. So, with respect to, obviously, not just money, but it's also a vote in terms of politics. But spend your money where it matters most, where it makes more sense, where it is more sustainable. And suddenly everything falls in place. Businesses, even governments, they start falling in place once consumers start doing that.
I think you brought up a great point about, individual consumers having the power. I think that one great example to sort of prove that was we saw with the stock market itself, the US stock market, where the retail consumers were able to push the stock price for some of the meme stocks, right? Which now we call meme stocks. So that's actually a great example. But then now when you talk about spending money the right way, I want to get to sort of the socio-economic factor of this whole aspect, right? Because when we talk about spending in a way where we are helping the environment, the cost of that, like in terms of spending money, becomes more expensive, right? Like for example, we talk about sustainable fashion and getting rid of the whole fast fashion industry and things like that, because they cause more pollution. But then what that is doing is also increasing the price of the product that a consumer is buying, right? Why would a consumer want to spend that much money? Like, when they're not when they're not being able to see the long sightedness of this whole factor, and they are sort of in their bubble of the short living, why would any consumer want to spend money, considering there's, like, even considering the fact that there are so many more poor people in the world than there are the rich population? The rich might even be able to somehow spend that money, right? So do you have any sort of aspect on that as well?
So I've been learning about. I'm learning as I go as well, as I'm working on my on IQ. So I'm learning this as well. That is, recently I've been reading this book by Bill Gates. It's called excuse me. It's called How to Avoid Climate Disaster. Right. In that, he covers a particular topic called green premium. That's exactly what you mentioned. That is, these green technologies in different countries, for example, cost more. Relatively,
Yeah.
they differ, but they cost more to go from what you have been already using, but to a more greener solution, right? So that's the green premium. The sad truth, okay, the fact is, um, the low prices has been the case because governments have intervened consistently over decades, especially when they subsidize fossil fuel costs and
Right.
the electricity produced, the price of it for the industries, the cost of your products that you buy are reduced, and that's how the prices of the goods and services you buy is low. um, that's the sad fact of that is if you're going to go green, it is going to cost. That's it.
Hmm. Right. So it's something that basically the people that can afford it need to actively sort of take it up. Is what
Uh,
you're like what it
oh
means.
no, no, no. So that is the second part of that's a different scenario. So I would say to live sustainably, you necessarily require to spend money, right? It is really difficult to do that, but if you keep at it, it gets easier over time. So yeah, it doesn't matter if you're rich or poor at a certain level to live sustainably.
Right. So I think this brings in the aspect of the whole like I think the minimalism lifestyle which exists, right? I think is that part of this whole aspect itself, or is that something different from this?
It does come part, like that's a part of living sustainably.
Right. Okay. So now in terms of understanding where India sort of stands with regards to climate change itself, do you have any research on that as well?
Okay, so India. This one you're gonna love it, okay? Because I think the audience here is more India oriented. So, okay, there's good news and the bad news. Okay, that is, it is still an emerging. I'll go with bad news first. That is, it is still an emerging country. It needs to bring up its population out of let's say poverty and all its socioeconomic problems, but it cannot do that while using the same old methods, right? So there's a challenge in front of India for the next decade. Here's what I see. That is, India, um, through its traditions, it has always been more sustainable. That's the good news. Okay, right. So it's in our. Just go ask your grandma. Right, she has a loads of suggestions how to live sustainably. Right. So it's in our traditions. That's the good news. And um, we have a challenge ahead of ourselves that we can solve for the world. Right. Uh, that is climate change. So imagine being coming through this phase of developing and emerging as a world leader. I think that's the real potential for India to do it and to do it the right way and show it for the world.
Right. I think one point that you brought up, which is India already is has had a history of sustainable living. This was another point that when I was discussing about veganism with another person that had joined me, she was basically talking about how the Indian the food that we eat is already sort of in the aspect of veganism, excluding a few things here and there. So, the sattvic diet that exists is sort of in that aspect itself, where it means that people are eating food which has which is outside of the oil and ghee and all the even the animal products, of course, right? So, I think that's a great point that you bring up. Do you have? I
Can I
don't know
add on
if
to
you
that?
might.
Can
Yeah,
I add
yeah,
on
yeah,
to that?
sure.
So that's about sattvic diet, right? So as a
Yeah.
matter of fact, India's majority population is actually vegetarian, and over time, with a little bit of push, I think uh, it's going to be difficult, definitely, but we can even reduce our carbon footprint in that matter as well. Um, okay, and regarding climate change, when it comes to India, that is. India has been contributing relatively less carbon to the carbon emissions, right?
Okay.
But the bad news is it is on the rise.
Okay.
Okay,
Hmm.
that's about India.
Right. But then again, like in terms of understanding India's carbon footprint itself, considering the population, of course, I'm considering the sizable population that we have. I'm guessing it would be lesser. But then because of the development is slowly happening, but then because of the lack of development compared to other big countries, had shouldn't the carbon footprint be more?
No, actually, no. Because the products, relatively, we use less products and services compared to an average, let's say, consumer in Western countries. And for a matter of fact, I think we are even uh, lower than the Chinese consumers, right?
Oh,
So yeah, that's actually good news. So
okay.
the amount of stuff they use is what sets them to be the most carbon emitters.
Right. Okay. China, you're talking about, is it?
China and Western countries.
Right. Right. I mean, China, of course, has like so much production facilities, and everything is sort of made in China. So, uh, I think them producing that carbon footprint. If these 2 3 countries, like say for example, these really high carbon emitting countries, sort of make the necessary steps and put in small changes, do you think that is something that will like sort of solve it for the rest of the world? Is
Uh,
that something that you've looked into?
I have come across uh, this scenario, like this thought. I've been thinking about this, and I've read about this as well. The most likely situation is because the political powers, superpowers of the world, are going to do their thing to do be the superpower of the world. I think they will continue to uh, reduce their carbon emissions internally and compete to be the superpower using uh, the leader in reducing carbon emissions, and that's a good thing. I think that's a good
Okay,
thing that will come out of the fight for superpowers.
right. That makes a lot of sense. I think another interesting aspect that I would like to share with the audience is one of the videos that I saw with regards to which country would be a superpower once there has been a significant amount of climate change. Yeah, 50 years later, who is going to be the superpower? And a video that I saw gave a good explanation on this, which was basically because of climate change right now, the heat, the major heat aspect, which is at the equator, will basically shift, right? So it will shift a little bit towards the top. So right now, the wherever the equator, or wherever the regions that lie on the equator, they will become cold. They will become colder, and the colder areas on top, on the northern hemisphere, if I'm not wrong, will sort of become warmer. So that includes Russia. All right. And this is again an interesting video that I saw. So I would again say that you guys go check it out on YouTube itself. If you search for Russia superpower climate change, you will probably get it to get a better understanding of this. So basically, what it said was that because of the heat concentration shifting towards the top, Russia has a huge landmass which is basically too cold to sort of be explored. All right, so a lot of the Russia's population is sort of concentrated at one place. So the whole Siberia part of it, a lot of it has not been explored because of how cold it is and how inhabitable it is. So once the temperature shifts, like once the heat form shifts to that place, it will become more habitable for people to live. More explorations will happen, and there is supposedly a lot more resources that can sort of be exploited by the country. So once that happens, Russia will have much more resources compared to the rest of the world, which will sort of make them a superpower. And this was something interesting that I saw on YouTube. So make sure that if you want to learn more about it, go to YouTube and check it out. So now coming to what is the solution right now? What is the world doing? What are the countries doing? What do individuals like us do about it?
Okay, let's start with countries. There are opposing news to consider. Like you recently covered on your page, Baxwa forest case, right? Where they are deforesting it for the sake of diamond mining, right? That's the bad news. But there's also good news. India is, reaching its Paris Agreement goals. I don't know how. Like, it's debatable how they calculate it, but it's okay to at least say they are trying, right? Uh, so that's on the country level. I don't really, uh, and there are different projects that they are doing scientific breakthroughs at national levels and international levels that they are doing. That is great. Uh, but other than that, politics is what messes things up. So I don't want to comment more on that. Coming to uh, I'll directly jump to individuals. Individuals most often feel helpless whenever they do something. Let's say, for example, as simple as saying no to plastics, uh,
Right.
or carrying your own bag to go shopping, is a big step. It's a lifestyle change, right? People don't recognize it. So, but often they feel helpless as to, how will this save, uh, the earth from climate change, right? That is not the case. It is just that if we recognize the number of people that are collectively doing that particular activity, we'll be amazed at how much that single activity is helping save the earth, right? So, um, and there's one uh, opposing force. The brands, traditional brands, they have a constant barrage of PR towards these consumers, saying it's your responsibility to recycle, it's your responsibility to save Earth. But uh, originally, they could, like just like Coca-Cola example that we talked about earlier. It is much easier for them to do it had they just
Yeah.
uh, internalized that climate change is important enough to let's contribute to it, right? And not just give importance to all the capital gains they get. Okay, that's at individual level. So what next? I think the next individual action can only get us so far. Right? There's one other step that is very crucial. That is community action. Community action is another level of, let's say, uh, a weapon arsenal, right, against climate change,
Right.
and we can. That is very crucial because if communities come together, especially groups of individuals come together and raise voice, suddenly that barrage of PR that's coming from these businesses doesn't seem to take effect because people are together. They can't overthrow an opinion of a group, you know, like that. So that is what we are also working at ECO. ECO is where you can build your local communities. There are plenty of
Right.
platforms where you can talk about particular subjects, but there isn't any platform where you can interact with your neighbors and talk about मंडी में कहाँ से टमाटर आते हैं, for example, right? Uh, yeah, I mean such things. If you just go ask your uh, vendor at the local supermarket, where does the tomatoes come from, and if you insist them to get it from more local areas, or even grow it uh, you know within the city, for example, right? That's great. That's a big step. You're voicing it out, and now it's a community. You're from the local community, and if they don't serve you, it's over. Their business is over. Soon they'll be out of business.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, and local communities especially, should come together to beat sustainability. That's the only power that people can have over businesses and governments, for example.
Right. Right. So, anyone in the audience who's really passionate about climate change and sustainability, make sure to check out Eco Earth. They have their app where they sort of have communities where you can also have your own community. If am I correct?
Yes, you can create your own
Yes.
communities and invite your friends and neighbors.
Yeah, yeah. So make sure to check it out. So I want to dive a little into the last aspect of our conversation, which is the circular economy, right? So you spoke about businesses becoming sustainable, right? But so there is the whole aspect of circular economy has come into come into light, right? So could you help our audience understand a little bit more on what exactly it is?
Right. So I think traditional businesses or any business that you might have known until now is basically that takes something from the environment, makes something with the help of its employees, the humans part of it, produces something meaningful, and what is not useful throws it out into the environment, right? And that is clearly there's a problem. You're taking something and you're dumping it out what you don't need, right? If you do this continuously, you'll have a bunch of things you don't need and something that you will not have any more of, right? So that is not circular economy. Circular economy is where you take something only as much as you need, not harming, not taking too much, and taking as much as you need and is good, and using it as much as possible, as
Okay.
long as possible, and trying not even to put it back, as waste. If it is going as waste, it is just delayed dumping, so as to say. It is still a traditional business. You still have to, if there is no dumping happening, that's when it is a circular economy, right?
Okay.
Yeah. I think that's a short, simple definition of businesses that operate in circular economy.
Right. So, do you have any examples or any practical aspect of where circular economy is currently being used, or is it just a theory, mostly a theory based thing?
No, no, definitely not. This is a big one. So, like, it's ubiquitous that transportation is very important in our lives. One cannot do without transportation. Like, so there is an argument on the spectrum of, modes of transport, which is the best one, right? If you are preferring, your own means of transport, personal, not public, right? So there are different options. Let's say there is traditionally you own your car, and then there
Right.
is something that you hire, right? This could be
Right.
Zoom car, for example, is one business that operates in this space. And then there is outright you hail a taxi, right? So it's in between. It's a solution. It's not a solution to entire thing, being carbon neutral, right? That's not the case, but it is closer. The more we prevent from buying new things, the more cars we prevent from, coming onto the road. It's better for all of us. That's the theory behind this. And uh, uh, car rentals, bike rentals are examples of this.
Okay. Okay. So, so are these businesses revolved around the idea of circular economy, or is it just their existence itself sort of becomes in that aspect? Do companies sort of look to become part of the circular economy and sort of build their business, or does it just become a part of their product or service?
I think it's just like how an individual adopts a lifestyle, right? A business has to adopt these sustainable practices into their products and services. So in that way, it's true. They might be whatever product or service they might be providing. They just have to ensure it is sustainable end to end. Like no part. It's like some of the businesses are doing this where they just make a certain part of the product or the process sustainable, or they say
Right.
it's recycled or something, and sell the rest
Yeah.
of the product. So that is not truly circular economy. uh,
Okay.
it requires end to end, all the way from procurement of the raw materials to uh, disposing of the last end products.
Okay, okay, understood, understood. I think with this, we come to the end of this conversation. Thank you so much, Raj, for sharing all your insights that you have. I think this was a very valuable interview that we did, and hopefully the audience also learned a lot. For anyone that's there and who missed out on any of the conversation that we had, I'll be putting this up as an IGTV, as well as this is being recorded for YouTube. So make sure to check out our YouTube channel as well. The link is in our bio. You can go watch the whole interview over there. It'll be better for you as well. Thank you so much, Raj. Thank you so much for doing this and sharing your insights.
Thank you so much for having me, Rohit. Happy
Yeah,
to be
and anyone who's interested in sustainability and climate change, please make sure that you check out the ECO platform itself. It's very, it's very useful for you if you want to do something, if you want to be part of the change, if you want to sort of build your own community of people that are really passionate about sustainability and the things that you are passionate about. So make sure to check it out. Thank
How
you
about
so
we
much.
create a community for barely opinionated?
We are actually working on something like that. So yeah, I'll definitely have that conversation with you offline.
Let's do that. All right. Thank you for having me. Bye bye.
Bye bye.